You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, my name is Philip Heidson, and today is Friday, May 16th, 2025.
6.
Well, last week marked a really important milestone for our team and for the Art of Procurement. After 10 years of building our online community, we finally made the leap into hosting our first ever in-person event, Catalyst LA. And honestly, I'm really still processing just how valuable it was to connect with so many inspiring procurement leaders and practitioners face to face. We intentionally kept the event small, by conference standards at least, although I'm happy to report that we sold out the event. We had an exceptional turnout, especially for it being our first ever event. There was so much energy and engagement throughout the day. It was truly something that I'll never forget. I'm going to be sharing soon more details and insights from the event. There were so many enlightening and thoughtful discussions that I know that all of our listeners can benefit from. But for now, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who made this incredible day possible. From our own team, to our speakers, our facilitators, to our sponsors, and of course to everyone who attended and participated. Catalyst LA exceeded our highest expectations, and we're already planning how to grow this experience in the future.
5.
Large-scale transformation projects almost always involve investments in new technology, but how does procurement know where to start when there's so much to be done and so much at stake? What foundations need to be in place before adding more advanced capabilities? Well, Joel Anderson, who has led IKEA's indirect procurement transformation over the last 5 years, believes in a methodical approach that begins with gaining visibility into what's actually being purchased. So in this week's Art of Procurement podcast episode, I spoke with Joel about IKEA's own technology journey as part of their transformation process. Listen in as Joel explains his team's strategic approach to technology investments and how each step builds upon the previous one.
Yeah, first of all, we needed to have visibility in what we're actually buying. So the first investment we did was a spend tool or spend analysis tool where we could put our data from different ERP systems into that and get something that we could read out from that. Yeah, so that was the first thing we did. And then second step was, the source to pay or source to goods receipt in our case. I mean, to have a base for that. And I think where we are now, we're starting more and more to look into how to say both to get the most value out of what we already have in terms of both optimizing processes, but also the reporting and how to work with the data from what we do, but also, peeking a bit at some best of breeds for some specific applications and things like that as well. Yeah.
As you were looking at it, what was the thought process on best of breeds versus looking at suites?
Yeah, I mean, from beginning, we didn't really have a big discussion about that, I would say. I mean, the one platform that was the way to go for us, we felt, because less decisions to be made and we can cover it all quite in a reasonable time. Yeah. So a lot of things spoke for that. And then I think once we get a bit more mature, we start to see like some best of breeds, maybe there is a value, but then we have something to compare it with, and which I think is also what you need to be able to make that decision.
How did you find implementing a source to pay suite then kind of changed the game in terms of what your capabilities were? Or should I say that in a different way? Did you feel that was a game changer, or was that, one small step along a journey of a lot of small steps that all compounded upon each other?
It's definitely foundational.
Yeah. It
establishes procurement in a completely different way compared to if we would only have, POs through an email or, because, so it's absolutely foundational. Yeah. And then the value that we get out, we get increased visibility, of course, so we know more what is going on. And then it's not like just because you have a system doesn't mean that the purchases are different.
Right.
It doesn't change the prices by itself. It doesn't change the suppliers by itself, but it gives you something to work with. Yeah.
4.
After many years in procurement, it's easy to assume that everyone around us understands what we do and the value that procurement brings to the business. I'm reminded of the too deep in the woods to see the trees metaphor here. Sometimes procurement forgets, I certainly forget, that a lot of the people we work with, from stakeholders to colleagues across all different functions, still don't really get procurement. And so we recently published a good reminder of this from one of our own team members who, when she joined AOP just a few years ago as a writer, was pretty transparent that she didn't completely understand what procurement actually did. And this was after spending many years working across industries in tech and just a variety of different other industries. But Brianna's story isn't all that uncommon. It's a great reminder that even though we live and breathe procurement every day, for many of our stakeholders, procurement is the ally that they never knew that they needed. For many in the business, procurement is quite literally hiding in plain sight. And so it's up to all of us to tell our own story about the value we provide in a way that reaches all corners of the business, turning procurement's outsiders into some of our strongest advocates. We'll put a link in the show notes to Brianna's article. As somebody that's been in procurement obviously for a number of years, I found it really enlightening to kind of take a step back and understand procurement from the perspective of somebody who is new to our function.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
Strategic procurement and the supply chain are paralyzed in a world that changes daily due to tariffs. Now, that was a comment in the What Respondents Are Saying section of this month's ISM Manufacturing Report on Business. There's so many different comments in there that are eye-opening to say the least. With that in mind, I actually posted a poll on LinkedIn to understand from our community perspective, what was your primary method of risk and impact mitigation on tariffs right now? It's something that, as that quote said, is changing on a daily basis. What we found was that 44% of respondents are really modeling what risks look like, but taking a wait and see approach. 26% of respondents are in pain share, really interesting term, pain sharing negotiations. So looking where they can negotiate with suppliers to share obviously some of that impact of the tariffs. 26% are actually their primary strategies to find new suppliers, new locations. And 4% answered other, really without putting anything in the comments. So I can't attribute that 4% to any other activity. But it was really interesting to see that the vast majority, the primary strategy for the majority is really in a modeling scenario, but waiting and seeing how things shake out.
2.
A new manufacturing survey just released this week by ETQ reveals some interesting ways that AI is being deployed across factory floors right now. It's always interesting to see actual data that shows we really have moved out of the phase where AI is discussed in terms of future implementation or plans. Now we're seeing concrete numbers in specific sectors or industries that show the rising curve of adoption ticking up every quarter. This survey reveals a pace of adoption that's really undeniable. Only 1% of manufacturers surveyed said they had no plans to implement AI, while 49% plan to deploy it within the next 2 years. This is on top of the 33% already using it. The most common applications for AI in manufacturing are to automate core processes, for document processing, or to spot defects on production lines. Rather than just chasing efficiency, these investments in AI are increasingly tied to larger business goals, which is a trend we're seeing in procurement as well, with over 60% of manufacturers saying they plan to increase their quality spending this year. Global manufacturing can, in some ways, feel like a slow-moving train, but after tracking AI trends for the last several years, it's evident that manufacturers are collectively moving beyond experimentation with AI and towards more targeted deployments, and then tying those to measurable outcomes.
1.
For better or worse, the word chaos has become so commonplace in our vocabulary this year, it almost feels numbing at times. But the reality of unstable, chaotic markets and supply chains means that procurement has to figure out how to respond, or keep responding to a fair amount of disruption and unpredictability. Because for now anyways, this does seem to be our new normal. Now, to help us better understand how to plan and strategize for strategic sourcing in times of chaos and uncertainty, we'll be talking to Adam Collins from ESCA in an upcoming AOP Live webinar. Adam's approach to market turbulence isn't exactly what you'd expect. Instead of seeing chaos as an obstacle for procurement, he believes that the fundamentals of strategic sourcing have become even more valuable and impactful in times like this. In our conversation, he'll share his insights on how procurement can use moments of chaos to create healthy supplier competition, to leverage pricing and contracts to uncover hidden opportunities, and turn payment timing into a strategic tool. He'll offer a refreshing take on procurement's role and value creation during challenging times. To register, you can just go to artofprocurement.com/calendar. That's artofprocurement.com/calendar.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.